industry. I was pretty sure that there were, at the time, it was the ATF, paying attention to the Got Mead forums to see if we were doing anything we ought not to, like making too much mead or selling professional mead out of our garages and, without legal permits or whatnot. So, yeah, I don't know so much now because the market's spread out so much. I imagine they've got enough to deal with, but...
Yeah, you would think they would, absolutely.
Yeah, well, how much manpower do they have? You guys can't even get through to get your cola things approved, I mean,
that's true.
Yeah.
Yep.
So...
maybe if they were on the ball about getting their side of the paperwork done, so many people wouldn't be having to do it illegally.
Yeah, there's that. There is that.
All in the pursuit of trying to raise revenue for, the federal government and the local government. I always bristle at the idea that they make it difficult for me to pay them. I don't understand it.
I don't understand that. You're like throwing money at them and they're going, no, thank you, not right now, kind of busy, can't talk to you,
Yeah. All the while, I have customers who want to give me their money hand over fist, but you won't help me deliver part of that to you. I mean, it seems counterintuitive to me.
All right, you realize this is the government we're talking about, right? Counterintuitive and government kind of go hand in hand for at least as long as I've been alive.
But if you're going to make it so difficult to do it legitimately, then you're going to end up with people who are not.
Yeah,
and that's just the way it is.
You also
that's what I'm running into.
Look at where their focus is beer and wine. Cider and mead are the little guys, so we get stepped on.
Well, yes.
Yeah,
and fruit wine's
different.
Too. Fruit wines get in Ontario anyway. Fruit wines also get stepped on. If you're not grape wine, you're nothing. But if you want, you can put a microbrewery on a street corner. You can just all it takes is commercial space, but a winery or a meadery, you need a whole lot of land, and not bitter. Okay, I'm bitter.
Not bitter, not at all. Yeah. We're going to document this whole process, and when she does finally open her doors, there's going to be a stampede. So, all right, I know the big thing that I kept seeing was, and you mentioned it earlier, is that they would tend to burn too dry because you're starting out trying to get at that low ABV. So, any yeast you use is going to go woohoo and eat up every molecule of sugar. So crashing it will stop that, but what I'm seeing, and I've seen this professionally as well as in home meads, is that they get thin. You lose the body, you lose that mouthfeel that is, kind of a hallmark of mead.
Yeah, and I think there's two things about that. One, I think we're going to come to accept that in time, where we're fighting going, we want the viscosity of the stronger, sweeter mead, but we legitimately can't have it. It's just not, it's a different beverage. I mean, if you think about, the IPA brewers that add dextrose or table sugar to their IPAs to crank up the gravity a little bit and add a little bit of additional alcohol, what's the net result? It's going to thin those out. I mean, people have gotten used to that. They've gotten used to IPAs in some cases that taste like hop tea because they don't have a lot of malt body to them. So I think to some degree it's going to evolve where people are going to understand that the crisp, refreshing beverage that I'm looking for can be in this form, and it's not a bad thing.
Okay.
The second thing is it depends on how you finish it, and it depends on what you finish it with. I mean, most of the session mead fermentations I do now are a straight up traditional until I've got them crashed and stabilized.
Right.
Then I'm adding something to flavor it. So, for example, if you start adding fruit at that point, you keep all the sugar.
Right.
You get other chemistry that comes along with it, depending on what kind of fruit you're adding. If you add currants, you're going to get, appreciable tannins. Any red fruits, especially something like raspberry, you're going to get quite a bit of acidity. Mm-hmm. So I think you can create texture that way.
Yeah.
It's not going to make the mead thicker by any means, like any scientific measure thicker, but it'll create some perception of body or texture there that I think when you add a little bit of fizz to it, a little bit of carbonation, I think you back off of that dryness just enough where I think it can be quite pleasant and still refreshing, because you need that crispness. That's kind of, in my head, that's kind of the goal, is looking for, some people might hate this analogy, but it works. The wine spritzer.
Okay.
It's sparkling. It's got alcohol and it's got some flavor and some sugar to it, but not too much of any of that, because you're not looking for it to be overpowering. You're looking for it to be light and refreshing. And that's kind of the model I've been working in for the session meads, is that as I want them to be approachable like that. But as I said, if I ferment it too dry, then I'm tinkering with it to try to get it to feel right, because I kind of have a target gravity that I want the finished product to be at. And you always have to come back. You always got to come back from where it finishes, because the yeast is just going to go there with you. But if you're coming back to 1004, 1008, maybe up to 1010 by adding fruit, juice, whatever it is that you're adding, I think you can create texture. And I think you can change people's minds about the potential that it's going to be thin and watery, because it shouldn't be.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, as you were saying that, I was thinking, I've had plenty of, flat, like completely dry meads, completely dry wines that had plenty of body and texture in them. And, so it seems reasonable to assume that we could do that with a session mead. I mean, the ingredients are very much the same. The only real difference that we're dealing with here is a lower ABV. So how to create that complexity, that texture, that... those characteristics that you want to be able to do, and do it in a way that, makes it, happiness for the people that are buying it. And one of the things that I've seen too, and we run into this to a certain extent in competitions, is when you back sweeten on the end, whether it's with fruit or with honey, are you running into that, there's raw material in here, there's, unfermented honey, there is unfermented fruit that, doesn't necessarily enhance. I mean, when you were starting to make these, were you seeing that?
I definitely think that when I first started, I didn't know where I wanted them to finish gravity-wise, so I think I was still trying to do it to taste as if I was finishing up a sweet, strong mead, and you definitely don't want it to taste like that, because then
that would be too much, I think.
Yeah, even with carbonation, then it's just cloying and fat and flabby, and it just doesn't. It's not right at all. That said, the one that I did recently that people have gone nuts for is one that had maple and vanilla in it.
Ooh.
And all of that was added after it was fermented.
Really?
And the gravity did finish around 1018 by the time I added. I know. Tell me about it. I see that on paper and I'm like, that's just ridiculous. What was I thinking? But it just tastes right. I added some honey, some maple syrup, and vanilla bean before I kegged it.
Yeah.
And even at that finishing gravity with the carbonation in it, because my actual final gravity when I cold crashed it when I was done was 1005. So I didn't go completely dry with it, and it was one of those ones where I was able to catch it. So I added about 13 points of gravity with honey, syrup, but it tastes great. It's not sicky sweet. It still has a refreshing character to it. The flavor combination is what I think is killing it with people. They're like, oh my god, this tastes so good. It kind of tastes like maple cream soda.
Oh jeez.
Oh my god.
Okay.
Which is ridiculous because it doesn't taste like it has alcohol in it at all.
You have some of this in bottles, right?
I do, and let me just.
And have you shipped me one yet?
I think I need some too.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of which, I got to send addresses to a couple of people that want to take care of the hosts. Just remember
Let
that.
me check thing real quick.
Shipping to Australia is expensive.
I know. We're working on that.
And shipping in Canada in the winter. Shipping to Canada in the winter is dumb.
Yeah. Well,
It'll freeze.
Yeah. Well.
I'll be able to share it with you, but I shouldn't tell you too much more about it.
Yeah, don't. Yeah, especially if you entered it in the Mazer Cup. Don't. Not too much.
I will neither confirm nor deny.
Yeah, there you go. Okay. Yeah, I was going to ask you if you had run it through a competition just to get that feedback, because I'd be real curious to see what they say. Because I like what you're saying. Just the mead maker in me is curious. while I would, as a consumer, go, woohoo, this is awesome. As a mead maker, of course, you can't help but analyze those things when you see them, and even more so if you're judging meads. Oh my God, I can't just drink a mead anymore. Oh my God, makes me a little crazy sometimes. It's like I just want to enjoy this.
And I think there will be two realities with it. I think there'll be the one where it so far what I've discerned is that would be something that will have consumer appeal to it. Mm-hmm. I'm not necessarily sure that a judge in a competition
would see it the same way.
Be as enamored of it. I think they'll analyze it as they would expect to. Yeah. I think the feedback will probably be that while it's well made, maybe it's too sweet, or maybe the carbonation, because I'm trying not to over carbonate these either. I don't want them to be like truly sparkling, like a sparkling wine. I want them to have some fizz to keep them bright, but I don't want them to be like mouthfulling, because you kind of lose the fun of the flavors. Yeah. So I will be interested to see what kind of feedback I ultimately get on it, just to contrast that with it, because I obviously am thinking ahead to saleability and consumer appeal,
and that's what you should be focused on as a commercial mead maker. That's the big thing. I'm looking at it more from an academic standpoint, just out of curiosity. But yeah, and I say that to all my customers. Like, it doesn't matter what the judges say. If your customers think it's amazeballs, then sell that. Yeah, it doesn't really matter if it works for them.
If your customers' taste is in their toes, make what they want to buy, because they're ultimately what's going to keep you in business.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, yeah, you got to make something that'll sell. But yeah, I totally want a bottle of that.
Okay. Well, I mean, I'll certainly plan. I know I'll see you in March, so I'll certainly plan to.
I'm gonna be there. I'll be there all week.
Me too.
Hamish will be too. Yeah, and so will AJ. So yeah.
I think I'm going to be planning to bring a box about twice as big as I did last year.
Oh, I know. I'm already looking at
people now.
I'm already looking at what I got to take with me, and and thinking I'm just going to go ahead and just suck it up, and ship the box, I
fly Southwest, so I can take a second bag for free. So
yeah,
I usually travel with my box of wine as my second bag. And usually the TSA opens it up, and most of the time I get a note that says "looks awesome." So
yeah,
making sure my meat is safe. Everyone, I appreciate that.
Yeah, I get my first bag free. I'm on Delta, but since I've got American Express, they cut me up to $200 in fees back automatically every year. Or is it $400 in fees? Anyway, it's like several $100s in fees where they just, so if I check a bag that they charge me $50, they automatically put it back on my American Express right away, right now.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, so that's kind of cool. It's one of the only reasons that I keep that card, because it just all my business expenses, but saves me money when I fly, and I fly 2-3 times a year, so I use it up every year.
So we were talking about meads that people want to drink versus meads that might do well in a competition,
which is something I'm sure the people out there want to hear. How can you make an award-winning session mead?
Well, so I definitely know that they're out there. The first ones I ever had were from Nectar Creek, and that must have been back. God, I'm thinking that must have been 4 or 5 years ago. And I was in Oregon looking around. We were out there. I think I was on a wine bloggers trip and just kind of checking out what was going on. And I was curious about all kinds of stuff. So I walked into a bottle shop and I saw Nectar Creek Meads, saw them in 22-ounce bottles. And I'm like, oh, this is interesting. I don't think I've ever had, sparkling low ABV mead. And of course they were good. They were really good. Wow, people make this? I didn't know anybody made this stuff.
Really
of course, I didn't get to making them until years later, because I got into making mead, and of course I wanted all the alcohol and all the sugar.
Everybody starts
this
out
really
like
good.
that.
Everybody starts that
That's like
way.
everybody who plays guitar wants to play Stairway to Heaven, or It's one of those things. Yeah, I always see these guys who are like, how can I push it to 30%? And we're going, why would you want to?
I mean, it's
don't worry, they'll learn.
Yeah,
if you want liquor, go to the liquor store.
You're right, yeah. If I'm going to push it there, I'm just going to drink vodka or rum at that point.
Just put honey in your vodka then.
Yeah, exactly. So
I mean, I think it's certainly happening, and I know. Trying to think.
Have you brought home an award for a session mead yet?
Actually, I was just mulling over that. I actually don't think I have.
Okay.
And I think that's only because in the last couple years where I've made them, I haven't actually competed all that much. And then when I sit down to go through what I have available to pick things that go into competition, I don't think that they've risen to the top. I've always, and again, this is the challenge, is that the judges are going to be swayed by the ones that have the big character and over the top. And,